forward to this.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Geeknd Live on a Monday. It feels strange. Usually we do this on a Thursday, but these are new times, Obi-Wan Kenobi times. Hello there, etc. I'm Jamie. Nice to see you again. Hope you're doing well wherever you are on this football we call planet Earth. And we are going to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi, episodes 1 and 2, or part 1 and 2. I have a guest who I'm going to bring in just a moment. It's Chris Barnett from Explaining Computers. You may well know him for his YouTube channel, which I've linked to in the video description. You also may know him from the chat. He's a regular with the usual Thursday Geeknd Live crowd, and also featuring you guys as well. As always, if you're watching in real time, get involved in the chat. This will be spoiler-based, spoiler-filled. Spoilers are coming, so just warning you now. And if you're watching in the future as well, drop us a comment. I reply to almost all of them eventually. In fact, pretty much all of them eventually. All right, a few quick hellos in the chat before we bring Chris in and get cracking with some Kenobi chatting. All right, Glenn the Geeky Hippie was here nice and early, telling you to do the right thing, and that is to hit that like button, people. Glenn, I know you want me to name this. I haven't got round to it yet. Life's been a bit hectic of late, so I haven't done any branding or any naming, but Glenn wants Obi Chat Kenobi. It's in your head at least, so it will live there, and perhaps it will end up in some form of branding on the stream as well. I do like it, though. Thank you. I'll come back to those in a bit. Red D, hope you're okay. Jane Flakes, good to see you as well. Hello there, my Jedi and Sith friends. And also, I can see Robbo Nuggies here. Ford Prefect, yo to you. VAR19. David Milano, who will become even more relevant than normal later on because he has produced something very nice that I will be using later in the stream. Jones Capone, hope you're doing well, my friend. And yes, don't forget to smash that like button, everybody. Anders Lay, hope you're doing well, dude. And Chad Campbell is here. It is Memorial Day, Chad tells me, in the US, which I believe is like a public holiday. So thanks for turning your back on your family and spending some time with us. Emperor Pow. Oh, the Emperor's here. That's awkward. Nikolaki, hope you're doing good in London town. All right, I'm going to bring in Chris Barnett now from Explaining Computers, and we are going to talk Obi-Wan Kenobi, episodes 1 and episodes 2. But first of all, the pleasantries. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hello, Jamie. I'm doing well, and hope you're doing well as well, and everyone also in the chat.
Yeah. Well, you're a familiar face on the internet, on YouTube, but also on the streams. I think you've been getting some stamps on your Geeknd Live loyalty card of late, haven't you? Turning up for the majority,
right.
not all.
Being there for most of them.
Yeah, there's room for improvement, but the majority you've made it.
Not quite perfect there.
So your YouTube channel I've linked to in the video description. I'm sure many will know it already. If the name of the channel isn't explanatory enough already, can you explain Explaining Computers?
It's basically a channel about computers, as you say. The name sort of says it. It's really everything to do with computers other than gaming. Basically, that's why I try to describe it. It's what I don't do that really defines the channel, but it's anything I find interesting around computers and related technology.
Have you ever explained Star Wars before on the internet? Is this a first?
I think it is a first, yes. I've always tried to work bits of Star Wars into things I've done, sort of books and things like that, but I've never had a proper chat about Star Wars anywhere, I think, in terms of media.
Well, we're going to do it now. For the next 30 minutes or so, Chad the Stopwatch Campbell is in the chat, so we will be under pressure time-wise. So first of all, before we get into Obi-Wan Kenobi, and this is a couple minutes warning for anyone who's trying to avoid spoilers, what was your introduction to Star Wars?
I was lucky. I was there right at the start. I was 10 when A New Hope, or as we now call it, A New Hope, came out. I was there for the original Star Wars. And so I grew up very much with the original trilogy. And I was quite unusual, I think, because when we got around to the prequels, I really liked the prequels as well. So I'm someone who grew up with the original trilogy and then later on saw the prequels in a different way because obviously I was older then, but I appreciated them in terms of what George Lucas was doing and the effects, and I thought it stood up very nicely. And then since then, like many people, I've just been amazed. We've had so much new Star Wars, so particularly the animated shows, the live action shows now. It's a great time to be a Star Wars fan, and I find it amazing that something that was part of my childhood is now part of later life as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you've been there from the very beginning, and unlike many, you haven't fell by the wayside, because certain eras of Star Wars seem to have eliminated some people who don't feel like it's their Star Wars anymore, who aren't maybe willing to embrace new styles, new stories, new characters. But you've been there since the beginning, and you're still here now. What do you make of so obviously you grew up with the originals. That is your Star Wars. I guess that's your golden era, like it is for many. I wasn't born when the originals came out, but I would still class it as my golden era of Star Wars too. The prequels, the sequels, you're staying with the big screen at the moment. How did the sequels treat you, I guess?
I was okay with The Force Awakens. I wasn't so happy with The Last Jedi. I thought it was a good film. I didn't think it was a Star Wars film. It lost me with the pilot making a comment about someone's mother in the first minute, and it was like, that's just not the sort of joke you do in Star Wars. Nothing wrong with it as a joke, but it just didn't fit. And I think the style of that film, I thought Ireland did a fantastic job making it look like Star Wars all the way through, but the script, a film where they basically were running away from the Empire and keeping a fixed distance away, but could come and go and back to somewhere else all the time. There were major holes in the plot for me on that. So I've watched the last two films, but for me, I like the fact television has taken us back to an earlier era, which I think, particularly you see Dave Filoni's hand across so much. He knows Star Wars, and that influence is there. And sadly, they didn't seem to get that quite right, at least for me, with the Disney sequels.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with what you just said. I enjoy The Last Jedi, but I'm happy for us to continue with this broadcast. I know for some, if you don't like The Last Jedi, if you do like The Last Jedi, it can be one big clash of the internet.
Yeah.
I'm cool with you, Chris, still. But no, I hear you. Some of the humor in The Last Jedi, I do agree, was quite jarring, quite out of place. I just respect how, in a way, I respect apart from the humor, the ways in which it wasn't a typical Star Wars movie, I respected, because Rian Johnson took risks. Unfortunately, it was in the middle of a trilogy that had already been established.
I think that was the biggest problem. Yes, it wasn't, what you see so much. I rewatched the prequels over the past couple of weeks, with knowing, obviously Kenobi was coming along, and part of me thought, why did people hate these so much? Because they are so consistent, they are so well written. You can pick at certain bits of how George Lucas did it, but the consistency and the character and the plot line is there. He obviously knew what he was doing from the start, and that Disney did not. Obviously, well, we know they didn't know what they were doing from the start. They made it up as they go along, and the trilogy doesn't work so well that way.
And what about in terms of live action? Have you been enjoying we're going to come on to Kenobi, but have you been enjoying The Mandalorian, Book of Boba?
I thought Mandalorian was fantastic. Watching the first episode of Mandalorian was like, this is a return to classic. I suppose because I grew up with the original trilogy, every time I see a stormtrooper on screen, it's like, yeah, this is proper Star Wars. So there is a bit of that going on anyway. But I just felt they got the pace, the look of it, the span of it was absolutely right in that. And Boba Fett, I liked as a series. As we all know, it had bizarre narrative problems in terms of not really being a consistent one series. I still don't believe what they told us in the making of it was all planned like that. I think they clearly panicked and threw in some other Boba Fett Mandalorian series, season 3 into it. But it was okay. I liked the individual bits of it, but it didn't hang together as well as the Mandalorian has, as it were. And I've also liked the animated shows. I like Rebels. I know you're not quite there with all the Rebels yet. I thought Rebels was a great show when she got past the animation style. I love Clone Wars. I like the Bad Batch. So we do have a lot of consistency in Star Wars, which is great at the moment.
We do, and I'm catching up. I have finished season 1, everybody, of Rebels, and I'm going to ask Chris about that a little bit later, because something happened in Kenobi that confused me. We'll come on to that shortly. Spoilers are fast approaching, people, if you are trying to avoid them. Okay, so we've talked about the past. We're about to talk about the present with Kenobi. Just looking forward for a moment. What are you most excited for in terms of the forthcoming projects that we know about officially?
I think Ashoka will be very good. I think Andor will be good. I think those both look to be really promising shows. It's, I mean, Andor particularly because we get a lot more of it. You know, one of the sad things about Kenobi is we've had a third of the series already. You know, as we just started to see it. Whereas we know, I think it's 12 episodes for Andor, and that's going to give us
2 seasons as well, I believe.
And exactly, you can settle with that. So I think I'm really looking forward to being invested in that show. Ashoka has clearly got a lot of opportunities linking things together again. You know, it's I guess I feel where Dave Filoni is allowed to do what he wants to do, it tends to work, and you get the impression he's going to be making that really, really work. So it's
in Dave you trust, but no, I think Andor is being severe. I think the trailer's got a few more people riding the hype train, but I feel generally and certainly pre-trailer is being really underhyped, underrated, but it's got a lot of potential. It's a great timeline, and it looks gritty and dirty, the dark side of the rebellion almost.
It is. It's almost like they've sort of snockered and made this 12-episode series without anyone really noticing it. It's like this is going to be fantastic stars. But then I liked Rogue One, and I know not everyone likes Rogue One, but I thought Rogue One was a really good original Star Wars episode, if you like, fitting in with it. And I think the Andor series can work with that.
Yeah, a prequel to Rogue One. And apparently, actually, the final scenes of season 2 of Andor, which they've not even started filming yet, but on paper at least, are pretty much going to take us into the opening scenes of Rogue One. So eventually, Star Wars will just be completely connected, whether it be from animated series, movies, or what. All right, let's talk Kenobi. That's what we're here for. So if you are looking to avoid spoilers, you need to leave the room now, okay? All right, then. So going into Kenobi, tell me what your expectations were, Chris.
I guess my expectations were very high because I guess like many people, I see it sitting right in the middle of the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. It links into Rebels. It even links into some of the other animated shows. And so the opportunities to mess things up with Kenobi were very, very high. You know, even something like Rogue One could only mess up going into A New Hope, whereas this can mess up everybody's Star Wars. And therefore, I was quite pleased actually when I watched it to go, I'm happy with this. You know, I didn't feel that they did mess things up. I thought it really delivered to a level of quality I expected. I wouldn't say it was absolutely perfect, but it was, for me, a good show, a good couple of shows. So it was a relief to know that it was going to be okay, as it were.
Yeah. So we got two, I almost say chapters, so used to Book of Boba and Mandalorian, but we got 2 parts as they're calling it. Yeah, it was quite intense having 2 episodes to get through in one, and something like 15 Stranger Things episodes in the same day as well, if you're into Stranger Things. So let's start with part 1. Let's get into part 1 in a bit more detail. I have to say, the prequels recap before the show started, or the episode fully started, was brilliant. Such good editing. And I'm not bashing the prequels here. I've seen a lot of sort of disparaging comments, people saying, well, could have just watched this instead of wasting my life watching, 6 hours of bad movies. But it was just genuinely really well edited and really got me in the zone for what we were about to see.
Yes, I agree with that. I thought it was very well put together. And it comes back to the point I made a few minutes ago that George Lucas knew he had a through story, and they pulled that out extremely well. And it left a very good intro to Kenobi. And I thought they then picked up on that very well indeed, because there was so many visuals and things in that clearly followed forward. You know, the visual consistency of Star Wars, he said, I think is amazing. They can go back into things we've seen little bits of, and it's there again. You know, we had the Order 66, recap, or not recap, but extra bit on the start of Kenobi after that, which I thought was quite strange because it took us back in time, having gone forward in time and back again. But it fitted perfectly. That could have been part of the one of the prequel films, and you wouldn't have known. It was just fitted in beautifully. So I thought that was a really nice, they are making it clear they're linking it together, and that they couldn't have done it more than they did with that.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty clear that Reva, the Inquisitor, was one of the Jedi younglings escaping the temple in that flashback scene, if you like, but new flashback scene. So I think we're going to get a lot more unraveling of her background and turn to, can you say the dark side, or do you say the Inquisitor side? Because remember, this is new to me, the Inquisitors. I'm only one season into Rebels. So
yes, I think Or the inquisiting people, as Leia called them at one point. I love that. I thought that was fantastic. I'm going to call them the inquisiting people from now on. Yes, it's sorry.
No, you go, Chris.
No, I think we'll clearly see a lot of her backstory. I mean, because that's partially what's building in. For me, I would have put that flashback at the start of episode 2, because we didn't need it at the start of episode 1, because it blurred linking back into Kenobi. It could have, for me, fitted somewhere else, but it was. And as always, the troopers couldn't fire at all. They had 2 clone troopers came out of massive doors with all these people standing there expecting them and fired at them and didn't hit anything. So it's
some things
but then
never change.
Never change.
But you mentioned Leia, and that's been another talking point. I avoided that leak. Apparently, that was rumored, leaked beforehand. I managed to avoid that, so it was a surprise for me. And just seeing Alderaan was a bit of a surprise, because you went from the kind of gloominess, the grittiness of Obi-Wan's new life to this, luscious green and blue modern planet, and weirdly everything seemed to be all right there, despite being the times of the Empire. Everybody seemed pretty happy there.
Yes, I thought having that they really built this episode up, and I think Star Wars always works best when they are planet hopping quite a lot, and we haven't had that in particularly say in Boba Fett. And here the fact we knew we were going to get Tatooine, and we got a lot of that, and it looked as we expected. But suddenly you had another world we'd seen very briefly in Revenge of the Sith, and quite a lot of stuff. I think it was nice they took their time to build that side of it. They could easily have had a very short sequence about just a message through saying she's been kidnapped, and they didn't. They built that through, and I thought the episode was much better for it. It was quite a long episode. It was nearly an hour, and I found it didn't feel it. It came to the end, it was like, oh, has an hour gone? It's whereas sometimes you're watching things and you're very much aware of the time. And I thought the actress who played Leia carried it off. When I first saw her, I thought, oh dear, she's too young because I think she's only 9, isn't she? The actual actress playing her.
She is 9. Yeah, she's playing 10-year-old Leia, I think, but she's 9.
They normally do it the other way around, don't they? But they got a 9. And I thought she just can't carry this. But actually, the more it went on, I thought actually she can, and she was really good. Managing to pull off a very complicated role in many respects. Although I thought it was weird they portrayed her as a child so much. They always shot her from above. Whereas when they had Obi-Wan talking to the Jawa, they lowered the camera down to Jawa level, so they could have done more with her. It's
true. Vivian Lyra Blair is her real world name, and I agree. I think she did do a good job. I think the character, this isn't to her. The character was borderline. It was approaching borderline annoying for me, but just stayed on the right side of that border. I don't think she's going to be the next Grogu, to be honest. But no. I think it was an. I don't. I can't. And this isn't. I'm not saying this in a negative way. I hope Obi-Wan drops her off in the next episode, and it doesn't become him and her for the entire season. I think it's a great device to get Obi-Wan off planet, to get him using the Force again. As he did and struggled to do so. But if this becomes the season, I just feel like it was a great device to get him off planet, but now they've got an opportunity to take us in a direction.
I hope she will be in the next one, and as you say, it will move on, and he'll stay off planet because he now wants to meet Anakin rather than staying with that. It doesn't need it, does it? And to be honest, I get the thing that's what they will do. We'll probably prove wrong next week, won't we? But I think it's what they'll do because they have had the breadth of moving around between different planets, different worlds. And I think you get the impression it's going to be Kenobi's journey through other things. And they've now introduced the Anakin element. The Inquisitors obviously will stick around with it. So it's, and I think it would be better for it like that if she didn't go all the way through it. But
I hope so. But again, a great device to get him off planet. But now they've set it up for me where I actually, assuming they don't go down that, you could say easy route of keeping her as part of the story. But for me now, it could go in any direction. And that makes it exciting. Even though we know the ultimate end game for these characters, I don't know where the next episode is going to take us. And that is exciting. You mentioned Anakin. What do you think? I mean, this is obviously going to be a big part of just 4 episodes left. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think that Obi-Wan is going to seek Anakin out himself, or is he going to be brought before him?
I think it'll almost be a combination of the two, because I think he'll now want to find out, what happened to him. And I thought, the moment when we saw he found out he was alive, that worked really well, and it worked purely because of Ewan McGregor. You know, I thought the shot when we saw him in the bacta tank at the end, as Vader or whatever we call him out of the suit, that worked. But the reaction on Ewan McGregor's face, I think it really for me sold that. It was so well done, and so I think that set up sort of he knows he's got unfinished business. So I can totally see him wanting to confront or speak to or redeem Vader in some respect, but obviously the Inquisitors are taking it the other way as well. So I think it'll almost be a mutual. Everybody wants them to meet. I think we know it. I think we get to see them fight twice, as far as I'm aware from the rumors around on the internet.
Oh, really? And, I didn't know that.
And that's a spoiler. I shouldn't say that, isn't it? But it's, I think we'll see a fight where he damages his mask, and that's how we'll get a bit more of Hayden Christensen. So we'll see Vader with a bit cut off, as it were, as we've seen in Rebels, and a bit of that as well. So I think it's going to be drawn from Kenobi's requirement, and then of course he gets stuck with he needs to get away and get back to Tatooine without leaving a trail that engages the canon, doesn't it? And you know, it worried me a bit that we had Bail Organa go and see him on Tatooine. He just suddenly turned up in his cave, you know, and hello, here I am, you know, and it's like, well, if you can find me that easily.
Top secret location.
Yeah, but particularly as Reva was supposed to be new to sort of kidnap his Leia, because Organa had a link with Kenobi. So if that link is known, then where did you go on your ship? Oh, I just nipped off to Tatooine and came back again. That worried me a bit, but then it worked nicely on screen. But it could have been a hologram. I would have made that a hologram.
Yeah. Just another callback, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you're right. We will see some sort of form, more than what we've already seen of Hayden in the outfit, because that's why they brought Hayden back. But also, I'm pretty sure now, seeing as they've already introduced a flashback, many flashbacks, in fact, showing existing prequel footage, but a brand new flashback with the Order 66 scene that we talked about. I feel like we will get a flashback of Obi-Wan and Anakin together in the good times, you know,
yes,
as well, for Hayden to have been brought back, because, you know, it's not even going to be his voice in the mask. Hopefully not anyway. I'm hoping it's James Earl Jones. We don't know yet. He hasn't been officially announced. There's been a few, I've just been keeping an eye on the chat, and we will come to it before we wrap up. There's a little bit more to talk about, but something that's caught my eye is there's a lot of, there's a flea in the chat. A lot of talk of fleas. Or just one flea.
Oh, yes.
Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. VAR19 says, I couldn't suspend disbelief when Flea and his minions had massive trouble grabbing it. Okay, that chase scene. Yeah, that chase scene was not great in episode 2.
No, when they kept running into logs like this, and it was like you could just duck, you know.
Yeah. Did not like that scene, I have to say. But probably the weakest point for me of the 2 episodes. David Milano says, Flea pulled me out of the episode, but the same thing happens in Back to the Future. Sige says, I thought Leia was going to get tortured with the last few Red Hot Chili Peppers albums. It took me out of it to the point where I couldn't, and Chad as well, oh man, the flea thing was ridiculous. I genuinely couldn't tell if it was meant for comedy or not. Yeah, it took me out because I knew who he was, but I didn't know who he was. And it was like, it really was playing on my mind, and I couldn't concentrate on what was happening next. And then saw it in the credits, basically.
Yes, I was exactly the same. It was like, you know, it's, yes, there we are. It's
There's a few here, including Power Droid Girl. Hope you're doing well. And also Chad I saw as well, who are very confident that young Leia will not become the new Grogu. Power Droid Girl says Ben won't become another space dad. Don't worry. I'll come back to the chat before we wrap up. So keep your comments coming in, please, people. Going back to the Inquisitors. Something happens in episode 2, which has triggered quite a lot of debate on the internet. It doesn't take much, does it? Let's be honest. But I think well-placed debate here, especially as this is all quite timely for me, because I finished season 1 of Rebels just the week before Kenobi started. 1 week later, I'm seeing the same character I saw die the week before, dying again, the Grand Inquisitor. What happened there? Is he really dead? What do you think's going on here?
I don't think he is. I think he'll be back. I think he'll do one of these. won't be seen for an episode or two, and then suddenly he's there standing beside Vader or something, going, "Oh, you thought you killed me, but you didn't." That's well, I can't believe they'd mess up canon that much. You know, I saw it in the credits. There's a line somewhere by itself. It says, "With thanks to Dave Filoni," and I thought that's there because Dave Filoni knows what he's doing, and so I think there's something we don't know about that. It was such an obvious thing because we saw him sort of fall out of shot, didn't we? Sort of the lightsaber went through his stomach and he fell out of view, and then he may have crawled off somewhere. We don't quite know, but I think he'll be back. That's my guess.
And also, it's not an unknown actor playing him. Rupert Friends,
Yes.
Rupert Friend. So he's got he's got a good back catalogue. I don't think you bring him in to kill him off in episode 2.
No, I don't. I agree with that. I think he'll be around a bit more.
As someone who is more invested in Rebels than me, I'm not saying I'm not enjoying it, and I am going to talk more about my Rebels experience as it continues, but I've still got a way to go with it.
It gets better and better,
People say this, yeah. I mean, there's people, Chad, in fact, and I know Jane as well, who are in the chat tonight. They for them, it's some of the best Star Wars, and who knows? Who knows if I'll agree with that? We'll see. But there was a lot for me when the trailer first came out, and people saw the Grand Inquisitor in live action, not Jason Isaacs physically or vocally, as he did do the voice for the animated series. But there was a lot of talk about the way he looked. For you as a character, for you as somebody who's been more invested in Rebels for a longer time, how did the character translate to the live action?
I had no problems with it. I mean, I look at it this way. If you look at, say, Anakin and Obi-Wan in Rebels or in Clone Wars, they don't look the same. They are caricatures. And so I've got no problem with a character in live action looking slightly different to how they looked in animation, which I will take as a caricature. So, for me, was the character consistent in terms of, what they were playing? They were. And so, yes, the voice was different, the look was slightly different, but providing it works in the context of the canon, for me, I've got no problems with it. I think it's, as I say, I look at it the other way around because we don't see characters looking the same. Kenobi's chin is very different when we see him in the animated series, but we don't suddenly go, well, that wasn't him because his chin was the wrong shape. So it's the same with the shape of the head of the Grand Inquisitor.
I thought he was great. I thought I love Jason Isaacs, and I think it would be great in another way now to see Jason Isaacs be brought into live action Star Wars at some point. But I thought Rupert Friend did a great job. I thought he was menacing. I quite like, I like the fact the Inquisitors have rules and they follow them, apart from Reva, obviously. I hope we see more from him. Colin J. Rogers gives me hope. Apparently the Grand Inquisitor species has 2 stomachs, so he's probably fine. He's probably alive. Panic over, everybody. Thank you. Okay. Final thing there, before we start to wrap up with the Inquisitors. I've seen a few comments about Reva in the chat. I saw Jones Capone making a few comments, which I'll try and find. I think we're going to get more. I think she obviously has a big part to play in this series. We're going to find out a lot about her background. I think there's going to be a lot of unraveling. She's got serious beef with Kenobi. We'll probably find out where that's come from. But in terms of a question that, or a point that people have brought up is that in terms of legends, and I believe a lot of canon, and this comes from somebody who sort of finds out from others as opposed to reads the books himself, but pretty much nobody was allowed to know that Anakin was Vader. And if they did know, then they would not know for much longer, and they would not be known for much longer because they would be removed. And even though I've not been exposed to that much of that side of Star Wars content, even that was a bit jarring for me at the time watching that episode, because I was aware of that. Was that something that caught your attention at all?
Yes, I think that's clearly the case, that they have knowledge that they shouldn't have, isn't it? And I guess it comes, for me, it's the sort of grand canon and smaller canon, and inevitably, the more Star Wars they make and the more gaps they fill in, the more problems they have. It's like, why does Owen Lars not recognize C-3PO in the prequels? There's all sorts of things that come in like this. And I guess you could say, well, maybe the Inquisitors we saw knew about Anakin being Vader or Vader being Anakin, but they didn't tell anybody, you know, and it's because there can be a lot of people who know things they shouldn't know and they keep quiet about it, but that doesn't mean we don't know them. So I suppose that's the way I would personally say, well, maybe they had knowledge that they would share between themselves, but they wouldn't dare publicly state. You know, so it could have been widely known around the Empire that Vader was Anakin, but actually not. That's how I'm trying to justify it. You know, I think you either get hung up on these bits of detail and it ruins the whole thing for you, or you have to look at the whole flow of it and say, well, was it a good bit of Star Wars? Does it fit together? You know, the point we were discussing earlier about was he dead or not, that matters, because they can't kill a character who's alive later on. That would be serious canon problems. But who knew what, when, and exactly what did they say? I'll give them a little bit of leeway on that if the story is good and the execution is good.
Now, what I'm about to say, you might pull me up on by saying, yeah, remember Palpatine in episode 9, but I feel like this is too big a thing to ignore or get wrong. I feel like it will be explained at some point how she knows and what her connection is to Darth Vader exactly as well. How maybe she's actually higher up the ranks unofficially in terms of you know, with Vader. So yeah, I think we'll see on that. Yeah, there's, as you said, there's no point getting too hung up on it for the moment. Right. So Chris, in a few moments, unless there's anything you'd like to add, I'm going to come to you for your marks out of 10 for I don't know if we do it for both episodes or an overall mark for these 2 episodes. I'll come back to you on that in a moment. Let me just pop over to the chat for some final comments. I'm just going to go down towards the bottom. So if there's anything that you posted earlier that you really have a burning desire for me to read, then copy and paste it back in, please. I will start from here. Jane Flakes. Rebels is fantastic. Comes series 3 and 4. The rest is just merely great. Well, just merely great will do. Oh, Chad has verified the double stomach thing for the Grand Inquisitor's Spithy, so there is even further hope. Glenn Gig Yippie is okay with Rupert in the role of the Grand Inquisitor. Now, not before seeing it. Power Droid Girl says animated Count Dooku looks very different from Christopher Lee. Sidge, my man. Sidge, I've got to apologize. I saw a message earlier saying I spoiled young Leia for you because a notification popped up from me on YouTube. I waited till Sunday. I'm sorry though, man. But I think in these times when there's something like this, you need to turn off your notifications. But I still am sorry. Okay, and I also waited till I saw the rest of my fellow vermin on the internet posting videos about certain big moments. Anyway, Sidge says I'm proper not bothered if they bulldoze the cartoon canon. Film and TV is the only real canon. If there's something they want to do, they'll ignore the cartoons anyway. They have before, and I think they will again. But I think as Chris said, when Dave Filoni's involved, and they're his babies, aren't they? You know, Rebels and Clone Wars. I feel like they're protected, perhaps, but we'll see. That's all we can do. Power Droid Girl says they can bulldoze the comics, but not the cartoons. This is my kind of row, people. This is a nice row to have in the chat. This is as toxic as the Geeknd channel gets. And I can see Chad as well getting involved with that, and also keep mentioning that we're over time. Thank you. Jones Capone says, "Oh yeah, Obi-Wan couldn't hit the broadside of a moisture evaporator man. So bad." That was in response to Fifth Oven's comment here. Were you disappointed by Obi-Wan's stormtrooper-like aim ability? Well, I mean, you know, I just can't wait to see him using a more civilized weapon, the lightsaber, once again. Irish Tom says, "Why didn't Reva read Uncle Owen's mind while looking for Jedi on Tatooine, but did read the mind of the fake Jedi?" Well, you have to ask her yourself, won't you, Irish Tom, I guess, but not sure on that. I mean, how strong are the Inquisitors, Chris?
I think, well, they are, a lot of them are supposed to be previous Jedi, aren't they, who've turned to the Inquisitor side, the dark side, and therefore, I guess, like that Jedi, there'll be different levels of power. I mean, one of the emphasis we're getting here is Reva is more powerful than many, isn't it? But I guess in answer to the question just asked, it would be whether she thought there was something important to read. She went into the mind of the non-Jedi guy because he knew where Obi-Wan would be. I don't think she thought that Uncle Owen was significant. If she'd known, she maybe would have probed his mind. Who knows?
Yeah,
you know,
I think she was playing different kinds of mind games with him there, trying to provoke something out of him through fear. She probably didn't genuinely believe he was a person of interest. Jones Clone says, I don't think Chris has said a single thing I disagree with. What a bloody legend. There you go, Chris. Ford Prefect says, I'm a regular Explaining Computers viewer, and I just thought I'd say that it's really cool to see Chris talking about geeky stuff. And Chad has an answer to Irish Tom's question. I would say the answer is convenience to keep the story flowing. Yeah, the answer is because the script said so. And Bar19 also has complimented you as a guest, Chris, but he's upset by the green screen being a green screen and having no image.
Sorry about that. It's just sitting there. Yes, it's how things were today.
Right. Okay. So before I come to Chris for final scores, and I'll give mine as well. Thank you to David Milano, who didn't ask him for any of this, but he very kindly sent me some video clips to use for the Book of Boba Fett, and he's done the same for Kenobi. So we have the clip I play if I did not like the episode of Kenobi that we're talking about. Here it is.
So uncivilized.
Kenobi. And this is like, they're just kind of all right, yeah? Like the kind of meh one, I guess. It's okay.
I have a bad feeling about this.
And this is the clip that is most relevant because...
Hello there.
Obi-Wan, more of that. I do want more than that. I'll come on to my score in a moment, but all I can say is this was a solid opener. Whilst not necessarily, it didn't necessarily blow me away entirely, but it was a solid opener that's got me very, very excited for what's coming next. Chris, final thoughts.
I agree with that. I thought solid opener. I thought episode 1 was slightly better than episode 2, but they were both very good Star Wars, good television. And as you say, they make you want to see more, which is what they needed to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm already, and you alluded to this earlier, I'm already gutted there's only 4 episodes left.
I think I don't know why they gave us 2 episodes together. What was the meaning? I'd much rather have had 6 weeks of my life with new Star Wars in rather than 5. You know, it's there must be a reason somewhere.
I'm personally off because Netflix is kind of not with all series like Better Call Saul doesn't, for example, but the majority of Netflix series you can binge, and we've kind of been. My enjoyment of Black Mirror got damaged by that. When Black Mirror first started and was on Channel 4 in the UK, you had a week before episodes, and you really had a week to think about those episodes, chat about those episodes with others. But then it moved to Netflix, and you just go straight onto the next one and completely disregard the one that you just watched. Yeah. And Disney Plus has got me back into the old school way, you know, of just wanting to have time to breathe between episodes. So, I would have took a gap between the first 2. But anyway, I'm glad they're not all there for one big binge. So let's just do an overall score for these first 2 episodes. What would you give out of 10, Chris?
I think probably about a 9, actually, for me. I think they were pretty good. I'll leave a little gap somewhere else to go. The one thing I was worried about on the first episode, we saw that Jedi strung up the one that Obi-Wan sort of cast aside wouldn't help. We didn't see that happen. The whole thing was about Inquisitors seeking out Jedi, and suddenly there seemed to be a bit missing. I've watched it twice, and it jarred for me both times. So that was the reason. Not a perfect episode, but 9 out of 10.
I hear where you're coming from with that. I have seen episode 1 twice. Episode 2 hasn't had its second viewing yet, and that hasn't been a problem for me either time. But overall, I would give the 2 episodes an 8.5 out of 10, which is very high for me. Episode
it's high for you, Jamie, isn't it?
It's very high for me. With 5 being average, you know, so it's well above average. So but episode 1 was definitely the stronger of the 2 for me, like it was for you. Also, I can see a 10 out of 10 for both. Sidge is having a great time with them. Jones Capone, we've only got 4 episodes left to come up with a chat name, although Glenn has had an idea. So if you want to make a graphic with Glenn's idea, I'll run with it. Glenn, part 1, 7 out of 10. Part 2, 6.9 out of 10. 5 is average. Good point. It's above average. First episode, 7 out of 10 from Chad. Second episode, 8 out of 10. Okay, the second episode was stronger for Chad. And did I do Jones's scores? Part 1, 7 out of 10. Part 2, 8 out of 10. And 7 out of 10 is the overall score from Glenn. David Milano, episode 1, 9 out of 10. Episode 2, 8 out of 10. All right, so I think I've read out all the scores that have come in. So I'll start what is always a long wrap up for me, even when I'm on my own, let alone when I've got a guest. I start to say goodbye, and 10 minutes later, we actually start waving and really say goodbye. Hey, Chris, you get to do a real-time wave with me. You've done the wave in the chat before,
marvelous,
haven't you?
yes.
So before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to add about Kenobi or life in general, the channel? What's coming up next on the channel?
No, I'm just saying thank you for inviting me on the live stream. It's great to talk to you in person. It's always great to talk about Star Wars, and it's good to see that it's been, the chat this evening. People have been, as you say, civilized chat, civilized debate. That's what your channel seems to deliver, and I always look forward to seeing that. And it's great to have been part of it this evening.
No, thank you. Great to have you on for the first time in the video form, anyway, and hopefully we'll do it again soon. And thank you to everybody that's joined. Don't forget to check out Explaining Computers if you haven't already. Link in the video description. That's Chris's channel. And I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, which means you've got to start waving. And we'll be back next Monday. So no stream on Thursday. During Kenobi, we'll be streaming on Mondays to give people a chance to watch the episode. And then we'll have a chat about it. All right, everyone. Start waving and keep waving. I'm clicking end broadcast. Keep waving.